Hello, my name is Frank Davis, and this is U2 Church, where we bring you to church and church to you. And today's lesson is part 2 of our series, Confessions of an Angry Man. And that's a series about forgiveness. And this particular lesson is entitled, Who Am I? You know, as we talked about last time, forgiveness can feel like the hardest thing, right? And yet it's one of the most important things to our spiritual lives. You're not forgiving can affect our relationship with God, and it will. And it also affects all the relationships that we have with people and any relationship that we're ever going to have. It's a terrible thing. You know, one of the passages I think about when I think about unforgiveness is over in Hebrews chapter 12. Hebrews 12. Hebrews 12, verses 14 and 15. Make every effort to live in peace with everyone and to be holy. Without holiness, no one will see the Lord. See to it that no one falls short of the grace of God, and that no bitter root grows up to cause trouble and defile many. This passage talks about the fact that we've got to be holy, right, to see God. But it's also a warning not to allow a bitter root to rise up and defile many. You know, unforgiveness is a bitter root. And let me tell you, when you don't forgive somebody, it's a bitter root in your heart that just kind of grows and it poisons your heart. And then it poisons every relationship that you have or will ever have. And like a lot of things, it grows best in the dark. And I don't know about you, sometimes with me, I feel like don't want to deal with it. And you put it in a dark place, right? It doesn't go away. The bitter root grows. And it grows. And it grows. And it begins to poison your perspective, put up walls of distrust, put up walls that affect not just the person that you have the issue with, but they affect all sorts of relationships. I tell you what, that bad husband or bad boyfriend that hurt you can rob you of a chance of trusting Mr. Right when he comes along, because those walls are up. I tell you what, that bad father figure, whatever happened, that hurt you, can rob you of so much love in your life because of the walls and the distrust and the anger that builds up. It is a bitter root. And as long as it's allowed to exist in the dark, it will grow and grow and grow. And I'm not just talking about theory. In my case, I'm talking about actual experience. Let me share a little bit more about my story. 1 month after being married, when I was the age of 24, my wife and I moved to Africa to work as missionaries. I'm a missionary, I'm in Africa, it's great, but I started to have problems with my relationships with people, particularly men on the team and the leader of the team. And it was a consistent pattern. And for the first time, someone's tried to really dig, and we talked through my past, and it really did come down to my relationship with my dad. And things I thought I had dealt with, but I had buried and never really resolved in my heart. Now, you can't fix everything, because I can't make someone apologize or make someone different or change the past, right? But I can make peace with it. And there's some things, some issues that I never really made peace with and never forgiven from the heart. And it had grown, and it created these walls, and it was just, I was bumping into it. And it was changing the way I saw people, and I treated people, and treated other men, and trusted people. And it was coming out and spilling over. And one of the brothers challenged me to go and talk to my dad and try to work some of this stuff out. And not so much trying to get a response from him, because I couldn't control that part of it. You know, part of my anger was, I never got from him what I wanted, even as an adult, in terms of an apology or anything, right? Well, I couldn't control that. It's about making peace with him, doing my part to make peace, and leaving his part to God, just forgiving it, letting it go. And so I prayed and I fasted, and I really, really dealt with it. And so we went back to the States. We had to go back for a funeral. In fact, Michelle's dad passed away. It was a pretty emotional time. But while we were in the States, I visited my dad in California. And for the first time, I confronted him with the things I had felt growing up. and what had happened and how I felt when he left and how I felt with the treatment. And I didn't share it for him to feel bad or to get an apology. I shared it to apologize to him for being so angry and being so bitter and for hating him. And to really apologize for that he didn't deserve that. And whatever mistakes that he made, whatever he did, that's between him and God. But I needed to respect him and love him as my dad. And I wanted him to forgive me for how I treated him. Man, once I did that, I was free. And it didn't matter how he responded. Now, I share how he responded at the end of this class. But the truth is, it didn't matter how he responded. He could have cursed me out, not acknowledged what he said, but once I forgave him face to face, and not based on anything that he did, right? But just forgave him face to face and apologized for my anger. That bitter root was forced to come into the light, and it had no more hold over me. And that's the power of forgiveness. Now the real question is, what brought me to that point? I'm glad you asked. It's in Matthew 18, verse 21. Then Peter came to Jesus and asked, Lord, how many times shall I forgive my brother or sister who sinned against me? Up to 7 times? Jesus answered, I tell you not, 7 times, but 77 times. Therefore the kingdom of heaven is like a king who wanted to settle accounts with his servants. As he began the settlement, a man who owed him 10,000 bags of gold was brought to him. Since he was not able to pay, the master ordered that he and his wife and his children and all that he had be sold to repay the debt. At this the servant fell on his knees before him. Be patient with me, he begged, and I will pay back everything. The servant's master took pity on him, canceled the debt, and let him go. But when that servant went out, he found one of his fellow servants who owed him 100 silver coins. He grabbed him and began to choke him. Pay back what you owe me, he demanded. His fellow servant fell to his knees and begged him, be patient with me, and I will pay it back. But he refused. Instead, he went off and had the man thrown into prison until he could pay the debt. When the other servants saw what had happened, they were outraged and went and told the master everything that had happened. Then the master called the servant in. You wicked servant, he said. I canceled all that debt of yours because you begged me to. Shouldn't you have had mercy on your fellow servant just as I had on you? In anger, his master handed him over to the jailers to be tortured until he should pay back all he owed. This is how my heavenly Father will treat each of you unless you forgive your brother or sister from the heart. Okay, this is a powerful, powerful parable. The parable of the merciful servant. And this servant was me. And it talks about 2 servants and a master. The master had tried to call the servants to account and realized one of his servants owed him a great debt. And he called him in and said, man, you got to pay your debt, or you're going to be tortured and thrown in jail until you can pay it. And the guy begged him, please, master, don't do it, man. Please, just give me more time. Have mercy on me. This guy owed a fortune. The equivalent of what the Bible says that he owed is like millions of dollars of debt. So he's in debt to millions of dollars, right? And he's begging him for mercy. Give me mercy. And the master gives him mercy. And he walks out rejoicing, but then he sees another servant that owes him money. And so the servant owed him a few silver coins. And he choked him out and had the guy thrown to jail and showed that servant no mercy. And the equivalent of what the other servant owed him was like pennies. So this guy's in debt millions and gets mercy. And someone else owes him pennies and he shows him no mercy. Well, in the parable, the master finds out about it and he's like, look, man, I showed you mercy and you turn around and treat someone else this way? Okay, look, I'm taking my mercy back. Because I showed you forgiveness and you can't forgive? And Jesus finishes the parable saying, look, this is how any of you will be treated, any of us will be treated, unless we forgive one another from the heart. Unconditionally. Right? We have no reason not to forgive. Why? Because we're in no moral position to withhold forgiveness. What does that mean? I owe God far much more than anyone owes me. I hurt God so much more than anyone's ever hurt me. I killed God's son on the cross because of my sin, my lies, my lust, my pride, my deceit. And I owe a debt I can never repay, and I beg for forgiveness, and he's forgiven me, and nothing anyone has ever done or can ever do to me compares to what I've done to Jesus. And Jesus says, Frank, you are in no moral position to withhold forgiveness when I've forgiven you. And if you take the position that you withhold forgiveness, this person doesn't deserve to be forgiven because they haven't done whatever, then you risk me taking back my gift of grace. That's what the parable says. That's the lesson here. We've got to extend grace. Who am I? See, I had to understand who I was before God, that I'm a sinner. I've hurt God so much. How in the world, me, who deserves nothing from God, that he loves, is forgiven, and has heaped his grace upon, how could I withhold forgiveness from somebody else? We're just sinners. My dad wasn't a monster. He was a man that fallen short. And yet he hurt me. The hurt was real. The things he did, they were wrong. They were wrong. We all fall down. We all fall down. I had to have perspective. See, what anger does, we have no perspective, right? I had to step back and see God's grace for me and who I was before God and how much he loved me in spite of myself, and get perspective. And that perspective allowed me to see I had no right. Not only did I need to forgive my dad, I need to ask forgiveness because all my anger, all my bitterness, I was sinning against him. Look, God, it doesn't mean that what he did, he didn't do any wrong toward me, or he had things that he should have apologized. But I couldn't worry about that. I'm not in control of how anybody treats me. I'm not in control of whether someone ever apologizes to me, or ever makes it right, or tries to make it right. But I do control whether I forgive them, or I do right by them. And that's what this parable is about, this passage is about. And I had to wrestle with this passage. Who am I? How can I withhold this gift? And the perspective is what wrestles it. And look, I can't control how anyone responds. This isn't about how someone responds. It's about me forgiving and making peace. So I had to talk to my dad, and I apologized to him for my bitterness and my rage, not knowing what to expect. I never had to talk to my dad while I tried to share anything that didn't end badly, okay? So I'm 25 years old. My whole life, it all ended badly. And so I didn't expect much. I just wanted to be right with God and make peace with him for my part. I tell you, once I apologized and forgave him, I felt so free. But then God gave me a kiss. My dad, a man I'd never seen cry or be sentimental, right? He started weeping and crying and said, look, please forgive me. I'm sorry. Blew me away. I didn't expect that. I didn't apologize for that. But he wept and he gave me this big hug. It was a powerful, powerful, powerful moment. And I wish I could give you a Disney ending and say we were best friends from that point on. There were still things to work out, practical things. But on a heart level, on a forgiveness level, I was free. I was free. And that's the power of forgiveness. But to have that, I needed to wrestle with this parable and remember who I was in my perspective. That I'm a sinful man that's been forgiven us so much, I have no right to hold back my forgiveness. What about you? Have you withheld your forgiveness from somebody because they hurt you so badly, or or they haven't responded the right way, and you're waiting for them to change. Look, we don't have the moral right to require anything from anybody before we forgive them. I'm telling you, you're not hurting them by not forgiving them. Maybe you are, but that's not the real person you're hurting. You're hurting yourself. You're hurting God, and you're poisoning every other relationship that you'll ever have. And for what? And more to the point, we don't have the right. I want to challenge you today to wrestle with this, to pray about it, to fast about it, and make the decision to forgive. And to help you, we're going to have part 3. Part 3 coming soon of the Confessions of an Angry Man series, our series on forgiveness. It's called Freedom. Can't wait to share that with you. But until then, this is Frank Davis, and this is UT Church. We bring you to church and church to you.